we have two talks about IPv6 now. The first is from Dave Wilson of HEANet, this is an updated version of an excellent talk that Dave gave at the RIPE meeting back in May. So Dave is going to share his thoughts on IPv6 deployment with you.
Thank you, Keith. I'm going to give 3 lightning talks. 5–10 minutes each. Should be done in about 20 minutes. And the first one is what went wrong with IPv6. Which really, when I think about it, and I was thinking yesterday looking at the surroundings here, which are even more impressive from up here, by the way, it's really about faith. There's those of us who have had faith all along. And there are those of us who have never had faith. And then there's the worst people of all, who had faith once and lost it. Hi. A couple of years ago, my boss asked me, why do we keep IPv6 turned on? Now, don't get me wrong on this. He's not an IPv6 skeptic. I'm not an IPv6 skeptic. My employer is definitely not an IPv6 skeptic. We've been running V6 for over 10 years now. We turned it on in 2001. We made it production and dual-stacked everything in the middle of 2003. That's over 11 years now. And the problem is that when you have that much experience with it, you can get some numbers and you can see how successful you've been. And as a result of that, I actually struggled to answer that question. So what did the numbers show after 10, 11 years? Well, we've seen some numbers already yesterday, and RIPE has some numbers which are public and very useful. Google has some numbers which are public and very useful indeed. I don't know if you see so much of what deployment looks like inside an ISP. Here's some of ours. These are the number of assignments that we've made since RIPE started using 2001 double colon. And this is how many assignments we've made internally to our clients, excluding the schools. Brian mentioned we have 4,000 first and second level schools. If you put those aside for a moment, we have about 60 odd clients who are third level institutions and other institutions. And this is fine. It's a very stable client base. We get some new ones occasionally, and this graph kind of fits what you'd expect, where there's a burst of enthusiasm at the beginning, and then it tails off and you only get the new people coming on board. But how many of these assignments are actually used? Now, of course, that's an ecumenical matter, isn't it? It depends on how you measure. But one very easy way to measure is which of these are in the routing table. If we've assigned addresses and they're not advertised back to us, well, no packet's going to reach it. They're just not going to work. And when I looked at the end of last year, the answer was this many. It was in and around half. And it got even worse, because when I looked at which of these were tunneled, we've been native for a decade, but we still provided 6 and 4 tunnels in case we had clients who wanted to make a transition and wanted to start off with a tunnel before dual stacking the native infrastructure. And it turned out it was guys back here who got their addresses back then. And I don't know what that looks like to you, but it doesn't look like transition to me. And it's not just these, the traffic also reflected this. We were seeing certain amounts of traffic in V6, but it didn't really seem to be growing. And it's not just HEANet either, because I looked at other European networks and other NRENs, and we were seeing very similar stories. Not the same, but broadly similar. And after 10 years, when my boss was saying, why do we keep IPv6 turned on, this was all I had to show for it. So that's why I really struggled with the question and what answer to give. And I realized I'd stopped understanding the problem that we were trying to solve. The question we're trying to answer is not, what good can IPv6 do? I understand that. We all in this room understand that. We have this good internet and this bad internet, and we want the good stuff and we want to avoid the bad stuff. And eventually, NATs are probably going to end up like spam in that they're just a fact of life and they're tedious and we have to work with them, and we probably just outsource it to someone and it'll cost money, and there'll be things we're not able to do, but we just have to cope because that's the way the world is. And we would like to try and, that's basically where we are now, and we'd like to try and get away from that. But we've been trying to use these points and these arguments as reasons for individual customers. These are reasons why the entire internet should by now be dual stacked. They're not reasons that a customer can use to justify the work they'll have to do. They're trying to solve problems like if I have a client who comes to me and says, right, we have this research group, they need IPv4 space, needs to be provider independent, can you sort us out? Now I can't. If I have a client who has a large chunk of address space, but they've now got more devices than addresses because who expected people would have more than one IP device on them at any one time? What do they do about that? Eventually, our layer is going to run out of addresses. And at that point, if we start getting new clients, they come to me and they go, we'd like to connect. And I go, fabulous, that's fantastic, here's what we do. Did you bring your own addresses? You did, didn't you? Oh, you didn't. What do I tell them? Do I tell them that? Does that solve anything? It doesn't solve anything for the people who are affected. It is, like I said, a case for the entire internet being on v6, but right now that just says, you go over to that internet over there and eventually the rest of us will join you. I'm not sure when yet. It doesn't work. It doesn't work for them. And I was realizing, as I continued to look on this wasn't a case for pretending to work on IPv6. It was a case for turning IPv6 off. Which frankly was too horrible to contemplate because we'd spent so much time and effort on it and we still wanted to solve those problems. We're going about it the wrong way. And I realized that at least in the IPv6 advocacy I'd been doing, it kind of boiled up to two arguments. And one of them was this: going around to people and saying, if you don't support IPv6, the internet will stagnate. And that's what you've been hearing until now. And that's fine. That's fine as far as it goes, and you can justify it. But then when that doesn't work on someone, I don't know about you, I'd switch tactics. I think a lot of us would do this and go, if you don't support IPv6, you will be left behind. Do you see the problem? They're mutually contradictory. Which one's wrong? Who thinks the first one is wrong? Everyone thinks the first one's wrong. Who thinks the second one is wrong? How can they both be right? Anyone? They're just extreme viewpoints, that's all. They're actually both justifiable in and of themselves, but when you take them both to their extreme, they don't fit together. And I think they've stopped convincing anyone who isn't already going to be convinced. That's the end of it. The people who have been convinced by these have already been. We're mostly in this room, frankly. And everyone else, we need to find something else. So I was sitting back and I saw this, on a completely different topic, I saw this quote from an author of books who, if you want to hear about feedback, here's someone who gets some both barrels of feedback when she rejects a book that an author has spent months and years slaving over. But she says, it becomes clear why you get these reactions if you think about it with your reader mind instead of your author mind. Authors with books are like mothers with infants. This has its good aspects because books, like infants, need someone to champion all their causes, but it can be a form of blindness. Awesome ringtone. So I was sitting back and trying to think with my reader mind, someone's using IPv6 as a tool to get a job done. What do they need to justify this? And I was coming up short. And then finally, things began to work. We saw the Word v6 launch, which did amazing work on the web. And some of my own clients, just in the past year, even in the past few months, have started to make really serious deployments of v6. I'm now seeing 5–10% of traffic sustained from some of my larger clients coming on v6, which is amazing. But I'm sitting here wondering, is this just another burst? Is this like the day when we dual-stacked our Usenet server and suddenly 10% of our traffic was v6? Is it just like that? Or is it sustainable? Is there something there that will keep other people going? And I still don't have an answer to that question. That's the first lightning talk. Let's talk about something else. Second lightning talk is about disruption. The word disruption is unbelievably abused on the internet. It's almost as badly abused as the word cloud. It's actually, it turns out, disruption and disruptive innovation is an academic term which comes from this book. This book is a wonderful book. I really recommend it. The Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen. It's as business books go, it's a gripping read. And he studied, he wanted to study why do well-run businesses fail. There's all this management theory about how to run a business, especially a big business. And yet there are so many companies out there which were apparently doing everything right and still failed. So there's a problem with the theory. He wanted to work on the theory. And he looked at, he looked at the hard disk industry. Now, why would you do a thing like that? Why would you study the hard disk industry? He had a friend who said, if you're a geneticist, you don't study human beings live too long, you don't get data. You study fruit flies, they die quickly. And if you want to find companies in the technology sector that die quickly, look to the hard disk industry. So he came up with this definition, and it's a fairly concrete definition. He says, take a graph with time on one axis and some quality on the other. This can be something quite concrete. Let's say capacity of a hard disk in this case. And he did this over and over again for the different iterations of the industry, but have a look at the 8-inch hard drives. And when they came out, they had a certain capacity, and over time, they improved. Each new one that came out was unambiguously better than what came before. And that's the definition of a sustaining innovation. It's better than what came before in every way. It's cheaper, it's faster, it's bigger, it's got more capacity. And the reason they did this, the reason they had to do this was obviously the companies were competing with each other, but they had customers to satisfy, and those customers' expectations were increasing as well. So they had to keep up or better with those expectations. And those customers they're the mini computer makers, Digital Equipment Corporation, basically. And that's fine. And then along comes a new technology, which is a 5.25-inch drive, and it's worse. It's slower than what was there before. It's more expensive by capacity, by byte than what came before. The only thing going for it is it fits in a smaller drive bay. And why would the mini computer makers want that? Of course they didn't. So what you ended up with was these very well-run companies listening to the customers, and the customers are saying, we don't want this. And yet they were forward-looking enough, many of them were forward-looking enough to work on the 5.25-inch drive and to put some effort into it. But at the end of the day, it comes down to your best engineers are going to be pulled away to fight fires for your biggest customers. And your salespeople were sitting there with their Rolodexes full of contacts, and they were hearing from them saying, we don't want these slow, rubbish, expensive 5.25-inch drives, keep doing what you're doing. And the management of the companies were looking at the margins they were getting or could hope to get off these things and going, why would we even want to enter this market? Mini computers are the place to be. We'll just keep doing what we're doing. And that meant, of course, that it was left to new entrants to find a new market for the 5.25-inch drive, which, of course, turned out to be personal computers. Now, we all know what happens next, because the personal computer market eventually becomes much, much bigger than the mini computer market and subsumes it. But it's even worse than that, and it takes place even more quickly than that, because this disruptive innovation, of course, gets its own sustaining innovations and eventually becomes not better, but good enough. And at the point where it's good enough for the higher level market, all of a sudden the 8-inch drive market completely goes away. It's over. And this applies, it turns out, to many, many things. It applies to more than just 8-inch drives. It applies throughout the hard disk drive industry. It applies to other parts of the technology sector. Nintendo did it with the Wii compared to Xbox and PlayStation. They came out with something which was a worse console. It was not nearly as technologically advanced as the others out there, but they made some pretty awesome games for it, and it was cheaper, and people bought it. If we take away the labels, it applies well outside what we think of as the usual technology sectors. JCBs are a disruptive innovation because they were hydraulic-pulled buckets instead of cable-pulled, and that meant that when they came out, they didn't have the same capacity. They didn't have the same lifting capacity as the old things that were out there, but they started with a market that they could get and worked their way up. And if you kind of look at this sideways, you can start to see why Microsoft is willing to annoy every single one of its existing customers with Windows 8. Because they are aware that if they keep satisfying their existing customers and no one else, eventually mobile is just going to kill it and render it obsolete. That's the second lightning talk. The third lightning talk is how to use a second lightning talk to try and solve the problem in the first lightning talk. Bring that back up again. We have two internets right now, V4 and V6. We have a set of viable applications. We have this general internet use, and one of them is good enough for it and one of them isn't. What's this? Any ideas? Is there something in this that doesn't need to be good enough straight away for every purpose, but that would allow V6 to ultimately become self-sustaining? Now, the trick here is there are lots of criticisms you can make of this theory and of this graph in particular. Is this valid? Is it real? One big one is, can you answer these questions? This comparison only works if these conditions hold true. Is V6 cheaper? Is it more convenient? And is it improving faster than market requirements? If you don't have this, if these don't hold true, then what you have is not disruption, it is something else. V6 is a big topic, and we're trying to focus. I like to look at it like this. Where are the areas where this holds true and where V6 might be able to become self-sustaining in some way? Which I think eventually boils up to, what can IPv6 do that IPv4 can't? Now, don't panic, I'm not talking here on like a base technical level. V6 ultimately is a packet on a wire, it's a stream of bytes with a header attached, and we just change the shape of the header. I'm also not really talking the theoretical kind of if only IPsec or if only geographic routing or something like that. I mean, what's the thing that a user might want or that a developer might want that we can genuinely make easier with a limited deployment of IPv6, where they can work out from there? Which gives me these questions. I start to wonder, why are we trying to do the things we're doing? We're looking at Google traffic on V6. We're looking at overall percentage of traffic at V6. Why? Is it because it's what we can measure? Is it because it's what we can see? And do we just aim for that because it's what we're able to reach? And is there something else we should be trying to measure? Is this actually the thing we want to improve? By trying to dual stack the entire internet that we have today, the entire internet we have today, unfortunately, is working annoyingly well. Not as well as I'd like, but it's working pretty well. People are able to use it and people are able to sell it. So that's difficult to compete with. And the growth we're seeing in V6 today, I have to ask, is this actually mainstream? Is it self-sustaining? Or is it going to sit at 5%, 10%, 20% and plateau again? And if so, are more people going to burn out and we'll just lose them? And are we ever going to reach something else there? So, I don't know. I haven't got my faith back yet. I'm still looking. But I do see one thing that gives me some sort of hope, and if it's not the right way, it might be an example of the right way. Nuts to these laptops. Here's the home screen of my phone. Everyone thinks about the web and HTTP traffic and YouTube and Facebook. Oh, Facebook. Facebook's not really a website anymore. It's a web application. That one right there. And one of the annoying things about it that we'll be talking about in the routing panel later on actually is so much content is concentrated in so many particular places. But as an application, that's not a general purpose internet application. That's hitting a single site. That doesn't need the entire internet to be dual stacked for it to work. Neither does that one. Neither does Instapaper, which is a very independent thing. It's a lot smaller than Facebook. Neither does Dark Sky. It's a weather app. Dark Sky, by the way, wonderful weather app. Really encourage people to go out and buy it. Is it going to rain in the next hour? Here. I love it so much. I don't know if it's using V4 or V6. Kind of I don't care. As a user, all I care is that it works. But I know that all it's doing is hitting a backend server, and the backend server has other things to worry about. Podcasts are an interesting one. Podcasts are a subset of the internet. That's a client that hits a bunch of web servers, but not the entire set of web servers, just a very small percentage of them. What would it take to turn podcasts into something that works very well in V6? Well, what do developers use? What do podcast creators use? They use a set of outsourced services. There's some stuff they'll do themselves, but ultimately they're going to go to someone for hosting, they're going to go to someone for making the whole deal work. Developers don't care about networks. I know, I checked, I went and asked. And I gave a 5-minute talk to them a while ago going, listen, V6, big deal, you guys are using things like Amazon and so on. You know what's going to happen when the price of V4 addresses is just going to rise, and are you guys prepared for that? And they're interested and they understand, but they've got things to worry about, and they deal with these things through an abstract interface. And the abstract interface is an API for the mobile platform they're using, or it's an API or web interface for the hosting provider. And I think maybe that's where we need to look. They outsource the services to things like Linode or Azure or Amazon or iCloud, and they're going to use what's there. And they use APIs that are there. And if those were to be dual stacked and properly manageable, and if the clients are going to get the V6 connectivity, then you have a chain that actually does something very interesting and very useful that doesn't involve dual stacking the entire planet at once. And it's a lot more meaningful than 10% of the web or 20% of the web. It's probably still too hard. I don't know how we would pull that one off in particular. But I think it's not the only area like that, and that's how I think we need to start thinking about that. So that left me back with my question to my boss, which is, what do we do? And the best answer I could come up with actually came from Don Melton, who led the Safari project originally, which was just don't regress. He was talking about speed of an application. He just would not check in anything that caused their primary metric, which is speed, to go down. And I'm looking at the same way now. I'm going, okay, we have this wonderful resource, which is this dual stack network. People are using it. Let's just make sure never to go backwards. And sheer dumb luck and entropy will mean we go forwards. That's the best I have right now. But at least it means we're not going to go backwards. And in the meantime, I'm hoping between us we can come up with the right answer here for how to make it go forwards. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Any questions or comments for Dave? Okay, doesn't look like it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.